Alright, as we get back to the installation, getting everything put together, here's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to take the fuel pump throttle system and assemble it. If you look at the engine, you'll see it over here on the engine, but I'll assemble it for you. And here are the things that are key in this point. First of all, you've got 3 recessed holes. That's where the heads of the Allen bolts go. Also, you have a recessed bracket slot in this one, if you can see the recess. When that assembly is put together, it looks something like this, so that it's facing the back of the engine. We'll put some Allens in here, essentially get that thing started, so it gives you a little idea of what we're looking at. Get them put in there and assembled. When you put this together, always try to make sure you get all 3 of them, the Allens started. If you can do that, all the stuff will go together flawlessly, as everything is machined for a machine fit. So when you get it like that, that's the mount. Mount then slips into this position here on the engine. When that slips onto the engine, you'll also have an Allen set screw, a 6mm Allen set screw that will slide into the top position on the boss, and that is the jam nut that essentially positions the fuel pump mount up and down. As you can see, you can move it up and down. You can tilt it so that the back fuel line and pulse line clear the top of the head, and then when you go to lock that in position, we want to make sure that that rides into the slot and puts the jam on, so that this mount will stay nice and steady. Then what I do is I come over, I pop out the top back, in other words towards the rear valve cover, with a 5/16 socket or a metric that'll fit that. And I didn't mention that earlier. The thing that you really got to do on your parts laying out is just make sure that you have a 5/16 socket for our side cover bolts, or our blower housing bolts, a 3/32 or a 3mm Allen key, a 7/64, a 3/16, and then a 10mm and the 5/16. The 10mm socket would be one that comes up here, bolts into the back side or the jam nut side of the mount, and makes it capable so you can put a torque load on there and lock that down. Pretty much that's all you're going to use that 10mm for. You'll notice that on this particular engine, we have our pulse line coming out of the governor hole. A choice for us, we like to use the shortest possible pulse hose we can, and make sure that that is a key element when we're setting the car up, also the engine, so we don't run an extra line back to the valve cover, which is generally accepted. Now we'll get the reel system started. Remember, I showed you the black wheel, the reel, with the bushing in it. You have to put that bronze bushing in. When you put the bronze bushing in, try to put a little oil on the bushing. Get ready. Also, in the kit, you'll notice that you had a longer bolt versus the shorter 6mm bolt. Okay, on the back side of that, if you look at this cover right here, you'll see that it's already been tightened up a number of times with your flange bolt with the flange on it. So we like to take and use the washers provided to make sure that this surface is relatively flat. Prior to putting the reel on, prior to setting the wheel onto that position, we're going to take and put what we call the push rod. This is the push rod on the throttle linkage. So set it in its position all the way forward on the throttle arm. Press your rod in, lift it up ever so gently, slide it by. So it should look something like that. Then grab your wheel, your reel wheel, take the spring, your throttle return spring, and when you slip that on there, make sure that you slip it on backside, spring into the backside, like so, so that when the spring is in the wheel, it's not up against the blower housing. At that point, set your position on the swing arm. You can see that part. Set her there, finger tight, get her started. Get your Allen wrench started, and you can start to see that slips in. Gentle pressure, not tight, just get it so everything is set on there. Okay, reels installed, push rods in place, nice and smooth the way it operates. Next step, 5/16 socket. Pull that front bolt cover off, or the front bolt flange off on the blower. Now you will use your throttle bracket. The throttle bracket is kind of unique for the overhead valve because it gives you a platform so that you can have it on the engine and use whatever you'd like. We use the ATM in conjunction with our product. We make an ATM, which is the accessory throttle mount or animal throttle mount. Once again, we go back, install the throttle mount bracket in. Same deal again. Grab your Allen, get her started. Before I get too far along, I want to take and make sure that my spring mounts through the hole in front of the bracket. Okay, so that's essentially what it should look like initially. Now this position can change and totally is up to you when you bolt it down as far as the center line of your throttle linkage. Kind of like to get them up a little bit, snug it up, not too tight. Usually use an inch-pound wrench when I tighten these bolts up. All you have to do is collapse the spring washer, not 240 pounds with an 18-volt stud installer or your lug nut installer, okay? If you're going to take it apart. So, we've got those two pieces on there. Next part will be the ATM. Animal throttle mount, accessory throttle mount. For us at ChainDragGONE, we slip it on like that. With a bolt, which is supplied in the kit. And something that really makes it quick for you is that you're essentially looking at removing all of the plate, the top engine plate and all that stuff. You've got air moving over your fuel pump. You've got a push-pull rod system in here that's nice and smooth. You've got your pull rod now that'll go in right here. Slips in like that. And once again, now you get another phase of it put together. But what we like to do also is put the swing arm, the swing bracket in, the ATM system. And remember, the brass goes in the direction that the arrow points, okay? So there it would sit in like that. Bolt goes in. Put your brass in. I've also got a system that's already assembled, so I'm going to try to put this together and give you a little baseline of what it would be like if we were putting one together to run, to race, and here's how it would go. We would take a male end of the throttle system, plug it onto the bar. Now we would cut that to whatever length we feel is most appropriate, so that if we have a flathead that's hooked to this cable, or we have any one of the combinations you may have. If you're running a box stock, you may want to have something that goes from box stock to an animal, or you may go from a box stock to a flathead. So with that in mind, linkage is on. Then, with a cable, with the ends on it, we also can put one, there's your throttle cable that you normally have, that slips in, and remember, arrow, brass, in position, put your jam nuts on, washer and a jam nut, fits on, that point, and then the final part of the puzzle, which is the setup, is clipping your throttle ends together. If you notice, these have a couple different holes in them. Slip it in like that. hairpin clip through it, put it together, and now you have your REEL throttle setup installed on your box stock. This is the same setup that would be on almost all of the common overhead valve engines. Thanks for coming to ChainDragGONE and checking the REEL out.